Chapter 11. Little Devil Girl, you are listening at novelfull.audio. If such a beautiful and charming girl were to fall down in front your eyes, who wouldn't catch her? Not to mention Han was not impotent in any way, if you can catch my drift. Of course he wouldn't just let her fall without trying to do something. Han didn't say anything but instead, grabbed the girl with blonde hair by her hand, and pulled her towards him. Accident or not, Han was a bit nervous and used a bit too much force. The girl arrived in his arms, causing him to feel two very bouncy peaches. Han couldn't deny it, it felt pretty good. If you saw this now, you would see the spark between Han and the girl. There were literally sparks the moment Han grabbed her hand. When their skins touched, blue sparks appeared near their fingertips. Of course, Han didn't feel a thing, so he didn't think too much about it. Han got a chance to look at the little girl's pretty face up close, as if admiring a piece of art. There were pretty girls everywhere, but she felt too perfect. She had pouty lips, not too big not too small, her eyebrows were not too long nor too short, a little change to her face anywhere is unnecessary because she looked like a heavenly beauty. Even her hair length was perfect. Someone this pretty should only exist in anime. To be honest, the girl was a bit strange, wearing full leather clothes from head to toe, with only her face and two hands exposed. Han thought to himself, if she wore a dress to show her perfect body, she would be so cute. TL. Pervert alert. Han tried to shake his head around to stop his pervy thoughts. He could feel that the girl's body was icy cold, holding her felt like holding an iceberg. She's probably sick. Han quickly took the girl's hand and pushed the return button together. Shwa, as Han regained his vision, he noticed that there were countless eyes were focused on. Due to the gazes he felt while held on to this beauty, he guessed that people were making perverted accusations. Han wasn't a gentleman, but he was not dumb. Even though he doesn't mind all these rumors, if people started talking about this girl being with another guy, it would damage her reputation. Thinking about that, he put down the girl on the center square, turned around and left as if nothing happened. After all, people can still feel pain in the virtual world but they can't die. Han knew that the girl will wake up after resting briefly. After finding out how to go back, Han went to the teleporter that's in the direction of the sun. He briefly glanced behind him at the dim virtual screen hovering over the unconscious girl. Her name is Yi Weiwei. Humph. Her name sounds pretty cute. Han smiled faintly and thought to himself. My lady. My lady. After repeating several times, the girl inside the assessment pod finally woke up. She was the girl that was just saved by Han. At home she was still wearing the leather clothing and a pair of gloves. The one that woke her up was an old bald servant who had a white goatee. Don't help me. Han was right, Yi Weiwei did have a stubborn tomboy personality. She saw the servant was about to come over to help her get up and immediately declined. She first double-checked her gloves and saw they were still tightly fitted on her hands. She then grabbed the two sides of the pod and slowly managed to get out of the pod. It looked like wearing gloves was very important to her. Did I faint? Yi Weiwei asked the old servant. The sea was extremely cold, and my lady didn't want to use lightning to protect her body, so she fainted. Fortunately a young mister saved you, and my lady has passed the 4th checkpoint and thus scored a 90. The servant replied in a deep voice. Her pretty eyebrows furrowed. She sighed lightly and said, he must have been hurt badly because of me. That's his bad luck, who told him to help me. He deserved it. The servant smiled, my lady, although that mister did feel the electricity when he touched your hand, he's totally fine. Yi Weiwei was shocked for a sec, but said coldly, that's impossible, you don't have to lie. I won't feel bad for hurting someone. The servant replied again very sincerely, it's actually true, and my lady actually fainted 1 meter away from the 4th checkpoint. It was also that young mister that held your hand and pushed the return button for you, otherwise my lady wouldn't have gotten the 90 points. I don't believe it. Yi Weiwei ordered unruly, show me the recording. Yes, my lady. The servant displayed the recording of the whole incident to her. When he saw Han's hand holding her own and the resulting blue sparks, Yi Weiwei felt an evil pleasure. After all, she's the lightning storm girl, and power she had was just that dominant. No one could touch Yi Weiwei's body, regardless if it's a man or a woman, they will all get hurt by the lightning storm that follows Yi Weiwei. Judging by this point, Yi Weiwei was indeed powerful, but also lonely. She can't touch anyone, nor can anyone touch her. It's a barrier that couldn't be breached. To be a girl that is untouchable for the rest of her life, was it really a good thing? Yi Weiwei was stunned, because she noticed that Han touched her hand and nothing happened. He even shamelessly took her hand to press the return button and bring her to safety. What's even more enraging is, after they returned to Center Square, Han just dumped her on the ground and walked around without even looking back at her once. What a shameless person. Yi Weiwei blushed, and yelled in rage. The old servant was a bit confused. My lady, after all that young mister saved you. Look at the facts, if it wasn't for him, my lady wouldn't have gotten 90 points. And if it wasn't because he wanted to help you return, he could have kept on walking, potentially even getting the highest 150 points. I don't care, he's a shameless person. Who told him to help? Do I look like I need other people's help? Tomboy Yi Weiwei continued to argue, my lady has the heart of gold, if my lady wanted to use the lightning guardian there wouldn't be any difficulty walking the entire distance. Only because my lady was benevolent and feared that lightning can conduct underwater and hurt other people, she didn't use that power. The little tomboy flicked her ponytail, got out of the assessment pod. Her legs were a bit numb, but she still pretended to be fine and said, what's wrong with the guy named Han Lang? His power source index is only 27 but he's not scared of my lightning storm. Could there be any conspiracy behind him? It shouldn't be a conspiracy, you two just met and never met before. Maybe his power is really strange, but unfortunately according to the rules, we can only know his level but not his power type. Yi Weiwei sneered, resist a SSS-ranked lightning storm power. Is it even possible? The old servant hesitated and answered, probably not, even if there is power that can resist my lady's power, they can at most reduce the damage but not completely ignore it. So, you have to look into this. Yi Weiwei ordered, and turned her head and left. The loyal old servant let out a light sigh, my lady was almost perfect, just her personality is a bit too stubborn. Chapter 12. Li Qi's Worry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Han went back through the return teleporter. Before he left though, he also specifically looked up on the information on Void End. Apparently, during the beginner stage, Han can void other people's ability. So, if someone shoots a fireball at him, the fireball will hit him but it won't be able to do any damage to him. It was as if the power entered into the void just before it reached Han's body. Suppose if Han's power source index, PSI, can pass 100 and reach the 2-star standard, he could then open up a spherical void end domain with a 1-meter radius. Anyone that enters the domain will lose their power and become ordinary people. If Han's PSI passes 1000 and reaches the 3-star standard, then the domain he can open up becomes 10 meters wide in radius. Same logic applies for higher star standards. Not too bad, I can actually cancel other people's power. Han thought with great excitement. Shwa, the light blinked by, Han opened his eyes and walked out of the assessment pod. Other than the Meat Mountain Qingzhong and Li Muyun, there was another stranger. He was middle-aged, had healthy bronze-colored skin, with a square face and an expression that radiates a firm and persistent personality. Holy crap man, first test and you got a score of 90, if it wasn't for that chick, maybe you could have gotten even more points. Qingzhong put his arm around Han Lang's neck and yelled in happiness, that girl does look really cute though, bro, I support you. Wait, what and what? Qingzhong was such a funny dude, he and Han just met today and now it's like as if they grew up together. Seeing that Han's score is so good, he's happier than Han himself. There was also other people's seemingly exaggerated praise, which troubled Han. It was as if he had done something really extraordinary. Cough cough the squared. Faced middle-age man coughed twice on purpose. Ching Zhong laughed and said, "Oh, I almost forgot, this is Chu Li, the chief in command of Esper Administration Center, Shanghai Division." "Chief Chu," Han said with respect. Chu Li nodded. "Up until now, your performance during the pressure exam was extraordinary. Next week same time you have to come here and continue the pressure exam. This is your responsibility as an Esper." Besides having to produce the drug index reports, Han still had a bit of time every day. Since the chief asked him with great sincerity, Han nodded and agreed. "In addition, the thing about registration, I've told my subordinate to process it already. You just have to wait here for a few minutes." Then, Chief Chu lightly nodded, and walked out of the pressure assessment center. Seems like the chief is pretty serious. When he was here no one else, of course, except for the Meat Mountain, talked. After he's gone, everyone swarmed Han. L.RG, SSS power. The best in the galaxy, man. Even the monsters at headquarters are way weaker in comparison to you. That's right, you didn't see it. When the chief found out about how strong your power was, his face stayed expressionless for quite a while. What's unfortunate is that you started too late. Your PSI is a bit low too, and otherwise the chief would drag you to the training camp for sure. Yeah, no mistake, I heard Chief Chu sighing in the background. When the crowd started talking about that, Ching Zhong became a bit unhappy. "What are you guys talking about? My bro just has a low PSI, right? He just need practice. This administration center's training facilities are free for Espers anyways. Bro, don't listen to them, the first round of the pressure exam and you already got a 90. Who has seen a score this high?" Han summarized everyone's opinion. In conclusion, his void end is a very strong power and everyone was very happy for him. But because of the fact he started late, even Chief Chu felt that Han had limited future potential, so he didn't really urge him to do anything particular. Only telling Han to not give up on the pressure exam and see if he can get an invitation to the galactic meet. Of course, with normal logic, a person who only discovered his power at the age of 16 and has a PSI of only 27 would be given the status of having low potential. But, what they didn't know was Han's 27 PSI was not accumulated over the past 16 years, it only took one day. All the strange things that happened at the Esper Administration Center took Han a lot of time. When he left it was already 3 p.m. and his stomach was growling. At this time the monk has finished his pressure exam and came out too. He tried very hard but only walked 1 mile, so he scored 60 points. After hearing that Han has such an amazing power and got 90 in the first round, the monk was very happy too, yelling that they should all go out to eat and celebrate. Talking about eating, how can we forget about Ching Zhong, TL? Also it might be a bit gay if it's just Han and the monk. So, the three of them left the administration center and went to the Peace restaurant across the street. Han also gave a call to his best friend Li Qi, who he hasn't seen in long time. Before, when he was still poor, Han owed Li Qi quite a bit because he always asked to pay for the meals. Han and the other two were all super hungry, so they ordered a whole table of delicious food and started swallowing it chunk by chunk. Not too long, Li Qi also came. Han introduced him to Monk and Ching Zhong, and also told Li Qi about his power. With wide eyes, Li Qi yelled in excitement, "You little shit became an Esper. That's the best news I've heard in the past 2 months. You turned off your phone for so long. Wang Yan especially asked me about you, she seems to have feelings for you. Now that you are an Esper, she will probably run into your arms without blinking her eyes." The Meat Mountain Ching Zhong started to exaggerate again. What's good about chicks from Earth? Today he went to his first pressure exam and he already hooked up with a super cute chick from another planet. Although she's a bit young, but her face, her body was perfect. I was drooling on the other side of screen watching him. Han is for sure a ladies' man. Li Chi was stunned and then he quickly asked, hurry up and tell your bro how you hooked up with that space chick. Han was speechless. These guys were acting as if they were anxious to see the world in chaos. Saving someone can be interpreted as hooking up. What the is wrong with them? The joyful atmosphere didn't last too long. After joking around for a bit, Li Chi became a bit sad. He asked for a bottle of wine and drank 2 big glasses himself, as if he had something in his mind. Han felt it's a bit strange, so he asked, are you sick? You don't look so well. I'm not sick, you are the one that's sick. Li Chi laughed and scolded at Han, then sighed, I just came back from the hospital from visiting 4th Grandpa. Ever since I can remember, 4th Grandpa was the one that treats me the best. He doesn't have wife nor kids, and I was like his grandkid. Han became very concerned too. Is 4th Grandpa okay? Why is he at the hospital? He's an Esper. A few months ago when he's exploring the extinction sites he used too much source energy, which caused damage in his 0-degree brainwave region, previously noted as the 0 brainwave region, which is the part of the brain that controls source energy. I don't know the details, the doctor said it's called regional brain atrophy. Han answered immediately without any thought, oh, so that's what happened. The 0-degree brainwave region is where Espers store their source energy. Training and battling causes that region to vibrate. The harder the training and the battle, the stronger the vibration, especially if it continues for a long time, which can cause different degree of damage to that region. Han continued, but your 4th Grandpa has reached the degree of atrophy, normal medicines won't be able to cure it anymore, it's necessary to extract young Esper's brain fluid and produce into a medicine called the 0-degree vitalizer to increase brain cell activity. Then, it should be taken with a nuclear energy pill to quickly replenish the force energy, and only that can completely cure the regional atrophy. Han spent the past 3 months writing index numbers for medicine, so all this knowledge has ingrained themselves in his brain. After he was done giving the little speech, his 3 buddies at the table all looked at him with mouth open, and that's when Han realized that he spilled the beans, because the 0-degree vitalizer and the nuclear energy pill are all illegal medicines which they probably never even heard of. Ching Zhong's mouth twitched a bit and asked, extracting brain fluid from young Espers. Isn't that a bit too ruthless? Monk is a bit confused, what's nuclear energy? How does eating it quickly increases your source energy? How come I've never heard of such thing? Underscore 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 thanks Sidersun for bringing you guys this chapter. I know there are 9 chapters in queue now, I will try my best. Keep the donations coming and bury me with money plzzzzz. Chapter 13. Extraterrestrial Raiders. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Han had no choice but to explain, nuclear energy is a type of source energy revitalizer. It is classified as a hormone stimulator drug. And of course extracting brain fluid from young Esper's 0-degree brain region is even more illegal. So don't tell others. Li Chi, tell me the details about your 4th Grandpa, maybe I can help. Really? Li Chi couldn't be more excited. Our 4th Grandpa is part of the United Government's Pre-Historic Extinction Domain Division, responsible for exploring all the extinction domains on Earth. The risk and secrecy of this job, you guys understand it right? Han nodded. Pre-historic extinctions domains don't just locate sites on Earth but throughout the galaxy. Before the age of mankind, the galaxy and its planets belonged to another unknown intelligent species, but for some reason, this formidable civilization disappeared within one night. No one knows where they went, and why they abandoned the land they lived on for generations. In the Milky Way, there were countless extinction domains, and these sites provided extremely valuable rewards when explored. From these sites, the gamma-ray transition engine was discovered, which resulted in the invention of space battleships that can cross the galaxy. The quantum technology facilitated manufacturing of supercomputers, etc. Without exaggeration, the current mankind civilization is built on the foundation of these pre-historic civilizations. Exploring these sites were the highest priority for everyone, resulting in extinction domains being fought over by all the planets. After all, the ones in control of the resources in the extinction sites were also the ones in control of the future, due to possibly acquiring some super technology and formidable firepower that no one else has. From what Han knows, Earth had a few extinction sites that were kept confidential and were strictly regulated by the Esper administration. Earth was always eyed menacingly by other powerful planets, and having extinction sites was a huge factor. Li Chi said, "I just know that Fourth Grandpa was leading a team to explore a newly found extinction site and a terrible battle took place. The exploration team lost over half of their troops, and my grandpa's sickness was from exhausting himself in order to protect the team when retreating." Han nodded, so it was due to accumulated exhaustion. "Now, I only know 2 medicines that can cure your grandpa's brain atrophy, but about how much he needs and what other medicines need to be taken on the side, I'm not too sure. I will go back and ask my friend." Li Chi immediately took Han's hand, his tears were about to drop. "Han, you must help me this time, as long as you can cure my grandpa's illness, my family and I won't care about how much money it will cost." Han comforted Li Chi, "Don't worry, we are brothers, I will try my best to help of course, and you don't have to worry about the money right now." After Li Chi shared the story about Fourth Grandpa, Cheng Zhong and Monk actually started acting a bit more serious and stopped joking around. Peace Restaurant's top-floor cafe was right beside the Huangpu River and the most bustling business sector of the city. Accompanied by a beautiful view, the four started sipping tea and talking about extinction site domains. Suddenly, when everyone was comfortably chatting, a black frigate-sized spacecraft appeared directly above the business sector, not too far away from Han's location. The frigate started descending at an incredible speed and came to a sudden break just a few meters away from the land. A huge gust of wind shattered all the glass on both sides of the street. A group of men in black hastily jumped out and ran towards the people that were shopping on the streets. No United Government flag nor military emblem, this ship just came in from outer space. The monk yelled. "Shit, could it be raiders?" Cheng Zhong asked. Raiders were a group merciless crooks and killers. Small and weak planets like Earth were the raiders' favorite targets. It was just that Han only heard about raiding incidents from the news, but he never heard of raiders daring to raid big cities on Earth under broad daylight. As for these extraterrestrial raiders' target, aside from valuable jewelries, they also came to kidnap citizens on Earth and sell them as slaves. The civilians are in danger. Who's an Esper? Quickly follow me. A man in a fancy black suit on the street yelled as loud as he could and ran towards the incident's location. The man wore flowers and red ribbons with the word "groom" neatly written on his back. Wait a second, he was the groom who was in the middle of his wedding, and after spotting those raiders visiting Earth, the groom left the bride and the guests and ran straight to the battlefield. Motherfucker, let's go. Cheng Zhong's veins were popping out on the forehead. He grabbed his headphones off his ear, rolled up his sleeves and was quickly on his way. And me. The monk yelled as well. I'm coming too. Han felt encouraged by the enraging atmosphere and yelled too. Then you guys grab on. I'm going to take you guys on a roller coaster ride. Cheng Zhong grabbed the monk with his left hand and Han with his right. He rushed downstairs with an incredible speed that was uncharacteristic of Meat Mountains. This Meat Mountain was actually a speed descent Esper. Normally, he's as fat as a meat mountain, but when he starts running he's faster and more agile than anyone. Go get them. Be careful. All these strangers in the restaurant were all cheering them on, but Cheng Zhong was really quick and the group of 3 disappeared instantly. Shua Cheng Zhong took Han and the monk and sprinted towards the crowded business sector. On the way there were a lot of civilians crying and fleeing the area. Cheng Zhong agilely dodged all the helpless bystanders. Han had noticed when Cheng Zhong started using his power, his weight was quickly decreasing. It turns out that his speed was converted from his fat. So it was a type of conversion power. No wonder Li Muyun cared a lot about Cheng Zhong's weight. His weight was his battle power. Schwa, another Esper, appeared right out of an alley. He's a bounce-type Esper, capable of jumping up to buildings over 20 stories tall. When the incident broke out, he was just about to take a bath, still wearing his bathrobe, his face covered in shaving cream bubbles, and he started running towards the battlefield regardless. The civilians were trying their best to flee, and all the battle-type Espers in the area, regardless of what they were doing, all started rushing towards the site as if they planned it together. Han's group was pretty close to the business sector, so they were the first batch of Espers that arrived to the scene, only to see 30 or 40 extraterrestrial raiders unscrupulously capturing civilians, especially the young and pretty girls. There was a pile of blood on the floor. It belonged to the groom that was telling everyone to go to the battlefield. When the fight broke out, he was the first one to arrive, but he was immediately surrounded by the raiders. Now he was lying down in a pool of his own blood, with a black blade sticking out of his chest. During the last moment of his life, the groom was still tightly grabbing onto a raider, not even letting go in the face of death. He was a fire descent Esper and was using a raging flame to burn the raider's legs to crisps. Under the raider's arm was a cute girl that was just about 8 or 9 years old, crying loudly. Fearing that he might hurt the child, the groom didn't dare to use his full power. Go to hell. With both legs burnt, the merciless raider cried out in pain. He threw down the child, pulled out the blade that was in the groom's chest and heavily stabbed it into his skull. The blood splashed as far as 5 steps away from the groom. Ednel.co. The little girl was saved, but this Esper groom had already left the world forever. But today was supposed to be the happiest day of his life. I will fuck your grandma. After witnessing the tragedy, Cheng-Mu's both eyes turned red and he let out an angry cry. Chapter 14. Temporary Formation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The tragic death of the groom Esper on his wedding day had enraged all the other Espers at the scene. Although there were not many of them, only 7 or 8, they all started rushing towards the raiders in complete synchronization. They were charging with such intensity that not even death itself could stop them. Hold out until reinforcements arrive. Called out a nearby Esper. The group of raiders were also Espers, so they felt no fear towards the infuriated defenders from Earth. Under the command of a bald dark man, they continued to calmly capture civilians, specifically targeting the young and pretty women. The battle took place in the most crowded business sector in Shanghai, and Shanghai was also one of the largest cities of the United Government on Earth. Right now it was afternoon, during the most crowded time in the business district. The majority of the people couldn't escape in time and they were surrounded by the raiders on both sides of the streets. Gengsi, the sound of body getting slashed opened with blood pouring out. Gengsi, a merciless raider, killed 2 more young men with a blink of an eye, laughed loudly, and tossed the 2 young women on his shoulder into the frigate storage room. Similar scenes were happening all across the street, causing anguish for the Espers that were desperately trying to save them. Unfortunately, these raiders were too powerful. With a team of fire, water, ice, and strength descent Espers combined with the experience from years of working together, the raiders formed a strong team. On the other hand, the Espers from Earth not only lacked numbers and power, but also combat experience and synergy. They attempted to charge twice towards the frigate but were forced back by the raiders. 3 Espers had unfortunately gotten hurt too, which included the courageous monk, whose shoulder was hit by a fireball. The wound had a burning smell and his robes were covered in blood. Don't mind me. We must prolong the fight. Until the Esper administration's troops arrive. The monk yelled at Qingzhong and Han Lang. Let me. Han has become completely blood-boiled from the scene and yelled without thinking too much. You. Although Han has a unique power, but he was never a soldier. Both the monk and Qingzhong knew it. Han spoke in a deeper voice, the biggest threat is the 2 long-range raiders on the left wing. We must take care of them first. Qingzhong, use your speed and hold me as a shield to get close to them. Then, throw down the monk to take care of the fire descent enemy that's within range. We'll then go kill the guy that's throwing ice spears. But you. Qing Zhong was a bit hesitant about the arrangement. Stop wasting time. I can void all powers, so don't worry about me. Let's go fuck them up. Qing Zhong and the monk saw Han was already very determined. They glanced at each other and answered together, okay. Let's go. At the same time, the raiders seemed to have met their target quota. The bald black guy whistled, and all the raiders started to retreat back to their ship. The raiders were very fast and efficient criminals. They cause a scene in one area, then they go to their actual destination, quickly raiding and pillaging before they escape. As long as they retreat before the Esper administration's troops arrive, judging by the current look of the forces on Earth, it will be impossible for the reinforcements to catch their customized frigate. Don't hesitate, let's go. Han got nervous and yelled at Qing Zhong and the monk. Qing Zhong made up his mind, he grabbed Han and held him up in front of him, and the monk grabbed onto Qing Zhong's shoulders. Qing Zhong suddenly concentrated energy into his legs, and charged right out of cover. An assault. Cover them. Cover them. Although the other Espers didn't know who they were, at this moment they were all teammates that could die for each other. A strength descent Esper quickly picked up some rocks on the ground and started throwing them at the enemies positioned at the left. Another water descent Esper unleashed a water dragon to cover for Han and the group. Hong. Things colliding and exploding, Hong. The enemy's ranged attackers saw Han and the others charging towards them. They hastily changed their target and tried to blow Han's team out of the sky with fireballs and ice spears. Qing Zhong hesitated a bit, and reluctantly started using Han as a shield, using Han's body to defend all ranged attacks. The fireballs hit Han's body one by one and disappeared into the void the moment they hit. The ice spears were aimed at Han's chest but shattered immediately as well. Although Han is immune to the powers, he could still feel the pain. He endured the excruciating pain just to create an opportunity for his friends to fight back. Impossible. My powers stopped working. The fire descent Esper that was closer to the three-man projectile couldn't believe his eyes. There were people on this world that were not afraid of fire. Just when he was hesitating, Qing Zhong already arrived. Han raised his leg and kicked the raider right in his balls. The monk that was hiding behind Qing Zhong suddenly jumped out and forced the raider to the ground. He didn't have a weapon, so he picked up a rock and struck with all his might. I want your life. The monk yelled like he went mad, and started smashing wildly at the raider's head. The next second, the extremely fast Qing Zhong and the fearless Han already arrived at the ice descent whose jaw had hit the ground after seeing what was happening to the fire descent raider. Qing Zhong's meat-mountain-like body went straight on top of that guy. Han picked up a metal rod from a piece of crushed concrete, gathered all his force and forced the rod right into the raider's eye. It worked. Han's strategy worked, and they started cleaning up all the raiders that were firing down upon the Espers from Earth. Within 3.4 seconds, they had cleared the raiders off of the left side, tearing up an opening in the escaping raider group. Raider attack. Civilians under attack. Hurry to the scene. Shanghai was one of the biggest cities in Asia after all, with a population of over 10 million and at least 3,000.4000 Espers. After receiving the news, Espers from all directions started heading towards the battlefield, and the amount of Espers from Earth in battle reached over 70 in a blink of an eye. There were even more on the way, running like maniacs towards the scene. In the group of Espers that already arrived, the most fearsome ones was of course Han's group. The battlefield was the best training ground, and all three of them were really smart. Their powers also had synergy, and they actually formed a great tacit understanding after cooperating for a short period of time. Han, who had the power of Void End, was like the armor of the tank, capable of cancelling out long-ranged attacks. Speed Descent Qing Zhong was the engine of the tank, capable of quickly rushing between enemies. What happens after the tank arrives? They let the dogs out. Strength Descent Monk was the perfect martial artist with a ferocious spirit, just like the sharp fangs of a mad dog. He bit whoever he could get on. One bite was deadly enough to drop whoever was close enough. These men are mad. Retreat. The commander of the raiders couldn't believe that the weaklings on Earth were actually this insane, yet tenacious. He loudly yelled, wanting to flee with his subordinates. The raiders didn't even have time to bring back their comrades' bodies and started running towards their frigate in full speed. Cut them off. Reinforcements are almost here. The espers from Earth started rushing in large waves, and the situation was totally in their favor now. Of course they wouldn't want to let these bastards leave the planet. But the raiders were still using clever tactics, covering each other while retreating. The Earth espers were forced back, unable to prevent the raiders from getting onto their ship. Hong. Sound of engine starting, the Galactic frigate's engine shot out blue flames, ascending quickly into the sky. The espers on Earth were anxious, with such great sacrifice they could only watch those murderers fleeing into the outer space. That's completely unacceptable. Suddenly, on the top of a nearby high-rise, a guy carrying a bronze bull statue jumped off. To be able to carry a bull statue that's a few tons heavy, he must be a Strength Descent esper, but Strength Descent wasn't flying descent. Jumping off at this height would kill him. But this brave esper didn't care about life and death anymore, and he jumped down with the bull in his arms, yelling as loud as possible to the end, "Doesn't matter how weak Earth is. It's still my home. I will fuck you at the cost of my life." The Strength Descent fell straight from the sky, and threw down the bull that's worth few tons. Hong. The bull hit right at the frigate's right engine, and flame came out right away. The frigate that was just about to take off, was smacked right back down to the ground. But the Strength Descent esper, he already used up all of his source energy, his body fell to the deck of the frigate like a kite with broken strings. The sounds of crushing bones resonated across the battlefield. He was killed instantly. Chapter 15. Sacrifice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator's note. Before we start, I just want to clarify some confusion our readers may have about how Han actually got that Void End crystal. The previous processor of Void End was a rogue esper that was hated by a lot of people, and I expect that he was just buried somewhere random that's not known to the public. That's why, when the gravediggers accidentally dug his grave, they didn't know whose body that belonged to, nor do they have any idea about the power of that crystal contained in that body. Since Void End is a mystery descent, it has a very dark color which can be confused with other black low-grade power crystals, thus causing the confusion. Chapter 15. Sacrifice. These extraterrestrial raiders never thought they would encounter such a tenacious resistance on a small planet like Earth. Even more unexpected was that their initial strategy of hit and run was entirely impossible to execute now. Nearby espers from Earth have been rushing towards the attack site at full speed, and the number of defenders started increasing non-stop. The scarier fact was that they were willing to sacrifice their lives just to send the raiders to hell. The cry of the Strength Descent esper before he died was still ringing in everyone's ears. That's right, no matter how weak Earth is, it's still our home. Come and leave as you wish. You still have to ask the espers on Earth whether they agreed. Everyone's eyes were blood red. The right-wing engine, which was responsible for ascending, had been completely destroyed. The frigate lost its balance and fell back to the ground. The espers from Earth stepped over the corpses of their comrades and charged right at the enemy, each unleashing their power and flipping the whole frigate over. Hong. Someone smashed the deck window from the inside. It was the leader of this raider group, a dark bald, very muscular and ruthless-looking man. He lifted up his arm and summoned a wall of flame, forcing the assaulting espers back. 30-something raiders grabbed the hostages they captured earlier and left the destroyed frigate, probably planning to use them as a shield and retreat to the rural areas first. Fuck the leader first. Don't let them get away. Han whispered by Qing Zhong's ear. After witnessing the tragic death of so many espers, Han felt such an intensity of rage he never felt before, staring right at the group of raiders. Suddenly, a black dot in the sky was closing in. It was an Earth esper with a flying ability. Chu Li's here. Chu Li is ranked as a 3-star esper. These bastards won't be able to run now. It's hard to say, they still have hostages. If you dare to come any closer I will kill them all. Seeing Chu Li closing in onto the battleground, the dark bald raider suddenly let out a loud cry. He then lifted his arm up high, summoning a fire dragon. This fire descent raider was really powerful. His dragon could fly up to a few hundred meters above the ground. Now! Han suddenly yelled at Qingzhong. Qingzhong had been accumulating his strength. He unleashed it and exploded towards the enemy like an arrow leaving the string of a bow. He held Qingzhong in front whilst dragging the monk behind him. It was the famous tank strategy. Han was very careful with choosing his timing, attacking right at the moment when the enemy unleashed a giant fire dragon and couldn't call it back in time. The distance between them was approximately 100 meters, but Qingzhong closed the gap within an instant. The enemy commander's right arm fire dragon couldn't get back in time, so he lifted up his left arm. Go die! He cursed, wanting to unleash another fire strike. Throw me! Han yelled. Hong! Qingzhong didn't hesitate and threw Han right out. All everyone could see was a guy meeting the wall of fire in mid-air. The raging flame made contact with Han but disappeared as if entering another dimension, leaving Han unharmed. That dark bald man stood there with his eyes wide open and couldn't believe what just happened. Han flew right into him and forced the stick of metal right into his neck. Ginsi, that dark bald leader, was at least a 3-star esper, and Han after all didn't receive any professional training. He used all his strength but couldn't kill him on the spot. The pole of metal only created a bloody hole on his neck. Although the guy didn't die, Han managed to grab onto and restrict the leader of the raiders so that he couldn't let out any fire spells. In the next second, Qingzhong and the monk also arrived. The monk stepped off Qingzhong, prepared his assaulting stance, and used his most powerful iron fist and punched the raider right between his eyes. Pang! Blood, brains, bones and even the eyeballs were smashed apart due to the punch. And Qingzhong used a table leg he found from God knows where, and stuck it right between the raider's legs. Ginsi final kill. Seeing that their leader had already died, the subordinates all got scared. However, the enraged Earth espers have already surrounded them and closed in together. On the left side of the street beside a pile of debris, on the steps in front of a store, Han, Qingzhong, and the monk sat together. Everyone was holding a bottle of beer which was forced into their hands by an old man they didn't know. The old man's granddaughter was among the group of girls saved today. He was so excited that he cried like a child and didn't know what else to do. That was enough to thank these boys. He distributed the food in his grocery basket to all the espers that participated in the rescue. He's already very old with a whole head of white hair, but he bowed to every single one of the espers, non-stop. Ambulances arrived at the scene one by one, carrying away the deceased heroes, those that used their life to stop the raiders. In the middle of the street, a young beautiful girl in her white wedding dress was crying. Her groom was laying there peacefully in a pool of blood. It was just a blink of an eye, but the wedding became a funeral. The most tragic thing on earth could be none other than a turn of events like this. Han let out a long sigh, said to Cheng and the monk, I couldn't believe it, all the espers on earth are actually really united, everyone just charged with their life on the line. Qingzhong faintly smiled, aren't you the same? The greater your power is, the greater your responsibility is. Seeing the evil people doing sinful deeds, how could us espers just stand there and watch? The monk was just sitting there, repeating what the deceased strength descent esper was saying, doesn't matter how small Earth is, it's still our home. The crowd got bigger and bigger, the ones that were saved were busy crying and thanking the espers. Everyone that walked past Han, Qingzhong and the monk all thanked them, and a pretty little girl gave them each a little flower. Han didn't like being thanked, because he felt he did something he should today. The real heroes were those that were killed in action today. Where are you guys going? Qingzhong asked. Home. Han looked at the direction of his home. I'm going to the hospital. Qingzhong pointed at his burned wound on his shoulder. Han gave Li Qi a call, and walked home mindlessly like a zombie. Everything that had happened today was too much for Han. It was his first experience in such a bloody battle, and it only reminded him about the kind of situation Earth was in. This was reality. The weak will get bullied. Those bastards dared to raid Earth under the broad daylight to capture slaves. Why? It was just because Earth was too weak. And those deceased espers, they deserved respect. Han would never forget the young groom that didn't even take off his wedding suit to fight. His eyes betrayed his determination, without the slightest bit of hesitation. The greater your power is, the greater your responsibility is. Han lay dead on his sofa, repeating the same line to himself. The TV was showing the list of deceased heroes from today's event. Peng Zhuilin, 33 years old, 2-star Esper, Strength Descent, from Jiangsu Province. Hu Hai, 24 years old, 1-star Esper, Fire Descent, from Hunan. Li Yunjin, 19 years old, 1-star Esper, Ice Descent, from Shanghai. Liang Xuedong, 15 years old, Wind Descent, from Zhejiang. Looking at these lively and unfamiliar faces, Han slowly tightened his fist. Sorry guys, I've been a bit slow recently. I will try my best to translate more for you guys. It's just that the school term is coming to an end and my marks haven't been ideal, so I'm trying to allocate more time to studying. But DW guys, I will have a whole month off where I can focus on translating, so keep the donation and votes coming. I will clear them all soon, mwahahahaha. Chapter 16. Earth's Rage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Esper Administration of the United Government, Shanghai Division. Deep into the night, Chief Chu Li sat at his desk and looked out of the window silently. Chu Li was still waiting on the report from the reconnaissance unit. This was the third invasion from outer space since the formation of the United Government. It was also the most serious one, causing 7 espers to be killed in action, with more than 20 espers hospitalized, and at least 300 casualties among civilians. Before that, Spain and India had also encountered similar attacks, but both of them took place outside of the city in rural areas, so their damages were far more insignificant in comparison to this one. After a few minutes, Li Muyun opened Chu Li's office door and sat in front of him. Chief, the reconnaissance unit still haven't sent their report yet. Li Muyun asked. Chu Li nodded. We are still questioning them. How does your skill unit think about this case? Li Muyun said, this successful attempt at stopping the raiders was all because of the courageous espers from Earth fighting with their lives on the line. The skill unit closely analyzed the recording of the scene and noticed outstanding performances from 3 espers. Chu Li finally became a bit excited, and asked in curiosity, which 3? Qingzhong, that possesses a speed conversion power. Du Ling, a strength descent esper that is nicknamed the Monk. And lastly Han Lang, the void end possessing esper of the mystery descent. Li Muyun listed 3 names. Chu Li said sincerely, when I got there I was just in time to see those 3 killing the enemy leader. They used Han Lang's ability as a cover, Qingzhong's speed conversion ability as mobility, and the Monk's strength as the main attack, and it was very effective. Especially the Monk. He's not only a strength descent esper, but also one of the heirs to an ancient martial art in Asia, a true talent. Li Muyun pulled out a laptop and passed it to Chu Li. Those 3 are not just good, but under such a stressful situation, they were able to create a strategy. This is the tape before your arrival. Chu Li took the laptop and started watching. Li Muyun had taken all the clips related to Han and the other 2 and made it into a video. In the recording, when most of the Earth espers couldn't break the raiders' defense, Han's group of 3 stood out and tore an opening in the enemy's tight defense formation. They had played a pivotal role in achieving the final victory. Of course, the other espers' courage all deserved respect and rewards. It was just that Han's group of 3's temporary formation was much more effective and skilled. That was beautiful. Chu-Li always had a serious face and rarely give compliments. Their synergy, tactics, and timing were all perfect. It must be the monk that was in temporary command, right? Among the 3 of them, he's the most calm one and also with the most battle experience. Li Muyun didn't say anything, he just slightly shook his head. It was Cheng Zhong. Chu-Li was a bit surprised, that boy is pretty goofy normally. It's hard to believe that he can really be counted on during important times. Li Muyun was still silent, he looked at Chu-Li and shook his head again. Then Chu-Li completely amazed, it's actually Han Lang. He didn't participate in a single day of training and was just recognized as an esper today, it's actually him. Li Muyun said, correct, every idea at the scene came from Han, even the timing of all the attacks were chosen by him. Li Muyun was one of Chu-Li's most trusted subordinates, his words were obviously believed by Chu-Li. However, the strategy and choice of timing all came from the least experienced Han Lang, Chu-Li really couldn't make sense of it. What was a battlefield? It was a place where blood and flesh flew everywhere and death was right around the corner the moment you drop your guard. For the majority of people, don't even mention thinking quickly on the battlefield, as long as they don't faint it's already good enough. To be able to come up with a strategy on the battlefield was a lot harder than people would think, and it is nearly impossible to do without years of training and battle experience. Han was just an ordinary person before today, but he was able to command 2 espers that had more experience than him to fight such a beautiful assault/defense battle. Without any exaggeration, if it wasn't for Han, it would have been a terrible defeat for Earth. Li Muyun continued, it's a pity, Han had the best ability, an amazing mindset in battles, but he only accumulated 27 power source index in 16 years. His potential is very poor, otherwise he would be a talent. Chu-Li nodded, and didn't speak further. At that moment, Chu-Li's secretary walked into the office, taking big steps. He looked so furious, even his face almost turned green. Chief, the result is clear. The raiders' real target was the PUFA Bank's underground gold safe. They also have another group of 5 responsible for taking advantage of the chaos to rob the safe. Chu-Li hesitated for a moment, gold safe. They aren't from Earth, why would they need united currency? Then, Chu-Li suddenly realized something, his eyes suddenly became cold and he slammed the desk and said, now I get it, someone tried to partner with those raiders to rob the banks on Earth, then let their accomplices on Earth convert the UC to GC and carve up the loot on the spot. Who are their accomplices on Earth? Madman Yiwen, a rogue esper from the Russian district. We have notified the Russian district to arrest him. Chu-Li said in a deep voice, gather the special task force immediately. But, we don't have jurisdiction to operate in the Russian district. Fuck the jurisdiction. Chu-Li finally lost his calm, pass my order, gather the special task force immediately. A few minutes after, on the roof of the Esper Administration Center, 4 Falcon-class vertical takeoff aircraft were prepared with 40 special task force espers assembled, also ready for battle. Chu-Li put on his battle suit, walked to the roof, and nodded to his assistant to give a signal. The big screen on the roof suddenly started to display the recording of the fight earlier today at the business district. All the espers in the nearby area rushed to the site and put their lives on the line to stop the enemy. The scenes were enough to make everyone blood boiled. The video ended, Chu-Li cleared his throat, looked at all the soldiers and said, everyone must be really clear about what happened today. When enemies showed up, these espers stood up for us, they protected the civilians, and they protected our home. The majority of them were not soldiers. Some of them were businessmen, some were professors, some students, and one of them was even a groom. They stood out to protect the civilians. Was it because of the $2,000 UC bonus we give me every month? No. Of course not, because lives are priceless. They were that courageous because they felt it was their responsibility as espers. And to avenge for those respected brothers, it's our responsibility as soldiers. The results were clear. Madman Yewin, a rogue esper from the Russian district, directed this slaughter. Their ultimate goal was the underground bank safe, and the raiders were responsible for causing chaos and distracting us. All these people died just so they could rob the bank so Ewan could convert it to galactic currency. I just don't get it. We are all espers, and some are willing to give up their lives to protect our homeland. But some have the gall to plan how to kill their own kind. What kind of fucked up reality is that? The raiders from outer space are hated, but the traitors of Earth deserve the worst death possible. Chu Li continued, avenge won't be overnight. This night, we will go to the Russian district, and send Madman Yewin and his accomplices all to hell. If the headquarters gives us any trouble, I will take all blame. None of the soldiers were not eager to fight. They rushed onto the planes and started flying to the Russian district at full speed. 2 minutes after the Shanghai district's troops left, the main pilot on one of the Falcon fighters suddenly reported, "Chief, the Beijing division heard our plan. They sent 2 Eagle-class fighters and 2 special task force groups after us." Chu Li was shocked for a second, then nodded and ordered, "Received, slow down a bit and unite with our comrade division's reinforcements." The pilot reported again, "Should we wait for the Guangzhou division and Chengdu divisions? They are farther away than the Beijing division reinforcements. As well, Xian division's troops are closer to Russia, they are currently in front of us. The Russian district has received our notice." Not only did they not have a problem, they are also sending reinforcements from the Moscow division. The Paris division also dispatched 8 special task force groups, and including the heavy artillery units from London, that's almost 1/3 of the total army from the area. Chief, new update. The North American and South American division decided to each dispatch an entire army to cross the Atlantic to support us. The news came in one by one. After knowing the actions that the Shanghai division was taking, all Esper administration divisions around the globe all sent out their reinforcement as if they all planned it together beforehand. Even the Americans and the Australians decided that even though they were an ocean apart, they still want to be present for the battle. Taking advantage and still betraying the home planet, that's something everyone hates the most. Chu Li is not the only one that wants Yewin dead. Tonight, all major divisions' forces will be gathering at the Russian district. Homies, thank you for your support. Chapter 17. 0.degree Brain Region Healing Potion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It only took 4 hours and 13 minutes. Han was staring at the clock, speechless. The 2 days after he got Void End, his ability to process complicated data became faster and faster. 2 nights ago he spent over 8 hours finishing up the index report, last night took 6 hours, but tonight, the time needed decreased to only a little bit over 4 hours. And after the 4 hours of highly demanding work period that required intensive use of his brain, he didn't feel tired at all. In addition, Han also participated in a battle yesterday, but now he only felt a little bit of pain in his chest. This speed of physical and mental recovery was too surprising. Han attempted to justify this improvement, but he couldn't find any other reason but the new power that he got. According to the web, there exist some special powers that can increase the metabolism rate of espers, which can in turn increase the recovery rate of wounds. As well, the espers would become more energetic, and replenish energy faster and so on. Han went downstairs and bought 4 meat buns and a large bowl of wonton soup. Meat buns were his favorite, it's something his mother used to make for him when she was still alive. The delicious-smelling braised pork were chopped into small pieces, mixed with a bit of pepper, all put into freshly baked bun. 1 bite and the amazing taste will linger in your mouth. Maybe it was also Void End side effect. Han's energy significantly increased and his appetite also got really big. He quickly finished 4 meat buns and the large wonton soup with added egg and shrimp. He logged on to the dark net and started looking for medicine to cure Lee Chi's fourth grandpa. Han's first subscriber, Night Walker, ran a medicine store that was decent in size with a favorable pricing. Night Walker gave so much motivation to Han and had also once pinned his post to the top, so Han of course visited his store first. Night Walker's medicine website had an artistic name, it was called The Light Breeze of Autumn Night, LBN. The medicine were all showcased on the online shelves. Han had already looked at them multiple times since LBAN was one of the 200 stores he used to collect his data. The screen flashed and a chat box showed up. Night Walker saw Han visiting his store and approached him first. "I saw you visiting just a moment ago, are you visiting again because there's something wrong with the index number?" Night Walker asked in curiosity. Han answered, "Nope, today's index report has all been done, after a few hours it will be sent according to schedule. Now I'm just shopping around." "Oh, welcome. If you need anything feel free to ask me. I have a friend whose grandpa has a case of atrophy in his 0-degree brain region. I want to buy some 0-degree energy revitalizer." Very soon, Night Walker sent a picture to Han. Han took a look and saw that there was an esper tied to a metal chair, his mouth was sealed by a metal ball, and there is a toilet right below his butt. A metal rod pierced the back of his skull and a drop of transparent fluid would come out from the rod every few minutes. Han only knows that the revitalizers used the brain fluid from young espers as a base, but he never knew that the extraction method was that cruel. The victims were tied to the chair so they couldn't even move an inch. To maintain the quality of brain fluid, he can't even eat anything, and nutrients were directly injected into their bloodstream to keep them alive to live a life that's worse than death. The brain fluid source is specimen 3219, a 4-star strength descent who is 21 years old. He has good physical properties but the 0-degree revitalizer doesn't work 100% of the time. For you, I'm going to use this sample to prepare 1 serving of revitalizer, with little side effects, immediately effective and doesn't require any complementary medicine. Night Walker was really a professional, and gave Han the best solution. Han said, "Yep, that would be the best. But isn't he in a lot of pain?" Night Walker answered as if he does not care at all, "You want to say cruel, right? Don't joke with me, this is the dark net, the shadiest place in the galaxy. I will be honest with you, this guy is a pedophile. He committed great sins with his power, and countless little girls and boys died in his hands. Allowing him to continue living would be the real cruelty. Now he's just repaying for his sins. If one day the quality of his brain fluid decreases and I have no more use of him, I will sell his organs to body parts dealers. Slaughtered like an animal and have its organs sold, that will be his ultimate end." Night Walker continued, "After all you are in dark net, you have to get used to this lawless world. By the way, your drug index number is getting more and more famous. Recently a lot of people started copying you to do index numbers for other industries, did you know?" Han was still trying to digest the information fed by Night Walker. To a certain degree, Night Walker was the good guy. He saw Han was in need of help and he took the initiation to help without expecting any returns. But if you change the perspective, Night Walker was also the typical dark net dweller, doing illegal activities and deeming lives to be simple resources. This might be the two-faced nature of humanity, light and dark exists deep down in everyone. Han took a second and answered, "More people doing index isn't a bad thing, after all the dark net doesn't allow data search or extract tools. Everything relies on being done manually. Some people are willing to work for money, some are willing to buy the data they need to save time. In the business world, everyone takes what they need." Night Walker nodded, "You are pretty open about it, but they won't be a threat to you no matter how hard they hard. After all you started really early and your data bank has far passed theirs in both reputation and quality. They can only be your copycats. Every day I look forward to your update." Before this, I had to visit so many other medicines websites every day to gather information myself. Now, I still do, but I don't have to spend so much time on it anymore, saved me more time for the wife and daughter. Han laughed. That's the benefit of outsourcing. I help you bosses with some work to save your time, and you guys subscribe to my service and give me some money to buy food. Night Walker laughed too. You really know how to talk. Don't worry, a small boss like me won't mistreat you. The revitalizer I will prepare it myself, won't delay anything. Aside from this, what else do you need? I also want some low side effect training medicines, source energy amplifying medicines, and reflex increasing potions. Night Walker hesitated. What you asked for are all for soldiers, they have low side effects. Could it be that you are using it yourself? Han said, yep, it's for me. Recently I realized, this world is actually really dangerous, so. Night Walker nodded. You are right, this galaxy had always had the rule of the strong devours the weak. It's fate that we met. I will try my best to help you. But you should understand, the medicine with the best effect also comes with higher risk, and the medicines alone won't be enough to ensure survival. You also need to learn the best skills, use the best weapons. All of the elite warriors are forged by mountains of money. I understand that logic. I am also looking to get the skills, weapons, and whatever else I need to become powerful. But to be honest, I'm still not too familiar with the Dark Net, and I spent too much time on learning about medicine, so that's the only field I have some understanding in. About skills, equipment, and training techniques, I know nothing. Night Walker had a mysterious smile. If you want good equipment, coincidentally I just know the right guy. But about where he got his equipment from? You understand. Chapter 18. Origin of the 10,000 Paths. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although Han and Night Walker never met and they had only just chatted online via the Dark Net, Han could still feel that Night Walker was full of passion just from their short chat. Han thought that this was probably the feeling one gets from a mentor. All the achievements Han earned on the Dark Net, Night Walker was a pivotal contributor. Soon enough, Night Walker had sent Han a list. Along with tons of medicine, potions and pills, Night Walker also gave Han a free light medicine storage box suitable to carry during combat, a free medical theory textbook, and topped it off with free shipping. The bill only came to a total of 6,700 GC. Han was quite surprised. The Night Walker is a really interesting guy. Not only did he pick out the most suitable products, he also gave him a storage box, a book on the basics of medicine, and free shipping. Han had been doing the index number for this industry for a long time, so he knew really well that the price Night Walker charged him was about half of the market price. It was probably his production price. Han anxiously refused. It's too cheap. I can't take this deal. Night Walker laughed and replied, why not? The margin on medicine is pretty high, so you don't have to worry. Making a few thousand more GC won't make a difference to my current financial situation, so just see it as a friend helping out another. Don't worry, I'm not making a loss at all. Han reluctantly nodded. I guess that's fine, I will definitely remember your help. Night Walker also gave Han a Dark Net link. Check this site carefully, it probably has what you need. The owner is a strange fellow. If you approach him yourself you will probably be ignored. But don't worry, I've added you to my list of important clients. He should answer you after he sees that. He continued, the Dark Net is very complicated. The majority of the websites need to be introduced between close networks. What you see on the forums are all the smallest of the smallest. The more powerful the website and organization, the deeper they hide on the Dark Net. Han gave his address to Night Walker and thanked him again. Then he turned around and rushed right to the website suggested by Night Walker. The website was called The Origin of 10,000 Paths, OTTP. The owner was called Pathless Origin. It sounded like he was bragging unblushingly that he was the #1 in the study of martial arts paths in the entire Milky Way galaxy. A lot of information on superpowers and martial arts could be found on OTTP, and Pathless Origin's business was just selling different types of instructional devices for martial arts styles and equipment. In the current society, martial arts were sold not as a book but instead as a storage crystal. It uses the data-brain injection method to directly transfer the information into the brain, which makes it impossible to create pirate versions. Each crystal was unique and becomes obsolete after first use. The martial art crystals and equipment sold by Pathless Origin all had unknown origins. The battle equipment were layered with dust, and a lot of the weapons were covered in dried dark red blood stains. Han took a look around. The things Pathless Origin sold were all the real deal, and the price was pretty cheap too. A fiber equipment set suitable for 2-star espers only costed 3,000 GC. Han checked out the other stores before and saw that the same set of equipment would have costed at least 10,000 GC. The weapons were fairly priced too. An enhanced tritanium dagger only cost 1,000 GC. Han's account still had a balance of 11,300 GC, subtracting the 6,700 GC from buying the medicines, he still had 4,500 GC left over, which was just enough to buy a set of equipment and a weapon from Pathless Origin. But Han wasn't in a hurry to decide. There were tons of free information here that Han was interested in. Han started looking carefully through the pile of data, but there was nothing on Void End, so he could only look at power immunity, which was quite similar to Void End. Power immunity was actually a lot weaker than Void End because it could only nullify the enemy's superpower attacks. The higher the level, the stronger the immunity. But Void End could completely deprive others of their power, and once the user progresses in level he can also create a void zone in which everyone will be powerless regardless of their level. Pathless Origin arrogantly calls the things he wrote as the ultimate review, radiating the confidence of being a martial art master. This was what he wrote on the power immunity file: stupid people. They all think power immunity espers should use guerrilla warfare technique, long-ranged attacks, and be agile and flexible. Wrong. Very wrong. Little do they know, power immunity is the cruelest ability in existence. The chosen ones with such ability must practice martial arts. Martial art users are practicing techniques with their lives on the line. Fight to kill. Hit every punch. Trade eye for eye. Only surrender in death. Without such a mindset, it is impossible to become elites. After finishing reading the review, Han was astonished. Fight to kill, hit every punch, trade eye for eye, and only surrender in death. This simple 16, Chinese, word review captured the essence of the immunity power. Take Han for example. Although he could nullify other people's powers, what happens after? Even though you don't have any powers, I won't have any powers too. The only course of action left was just stabbing at each other with knives or something. At that moment, the result will be determined by who was better at martial arts, who was more merciless and not afraid of death. So the espers with an immunity type ability could only undergo the cruelest training method, practice superior martial arts, and rely on the strategy of first taking away the enemy's power, and then killing them in close combat. Han took a look at the owner's review on other powers, and all reviews started with the same sentence: stupid people. It sounded like as if no one else was competent enough to do reviews and only he spoke the truth. Regardless of how arrogant Pathless Origin was, it didn't affect Han's opinion of him. All his reviews were on point, which showed Han a clear path to follow for the future. After looking at the reviews Pathless Origin wrote on other powers, Han began to pick the equipment and weapons he needed. Chapter 19. Pathless Origin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A battle suit was a must-have for espers in this era. A good set could not only ensure the safety of soldiers, but also increase their immunity to powers. To Han, protection against superpowers wasn't as important because he was already immune to all powers. Instead, Han plans to find himself a fairly priced suit with great protection against physical attacks. Soon, Han found a black leather battle suit, which looked like a big dark pile, carelessly tossed to the side by Pathless Origin. If it wasn't because this so-called Black Celestial Python set had a 2.5-star ranking, probably no one would want to spend 3000 GC for something like this that looked like a pile of junk. Pathless Origin was a very strange guy. Normal sellers would have divided all 2-star equipment into high, medium or low quality and priced them differently accordingly. For Pathless Origin, all 2-star equipment were priced at 3000 GC each, and all 3-star ones were 10,000 GC each. He didn't include any labels, and the most he gave was the name of the equipment. Han liked the Black Celestial Python set for 2 reasons. Among all the 2-star equipment, it was the only one labeled 2.5 stars. Why wouldn't someone want to spend the same amount of money to buy something that was higher level? It was just that Han didn't get the meaning behind that extra half-star. After thinking for a while, Han used the Dark Net chat service and called the owner Pathless Origin. It took a long time for the chat to be answered, and just when Han was about to greet him, Pathless Origin already started yelling, "If you have something to say it fast. If you need to fart, hurry and fart, can't you see I'm busy?" Han was shocked for a bit, as the old saying goes, being nice when doing business can really help your business, but this Pathless Origin boss seems to have quite an attitude. Han wasn't angry at all, he had only been on the Dark Net for a short time so he was still a complete novice. Besides, there isn't any downsides for him to be humble. In addition, Pathless Origin was recommended by Nightwalker, and Han believes that Nightwalker wouldn't lie to him. "Teacher, I have a question to ask. Why is this set of Black Celestial Python marked as 2.5 stars? Why is there still half a level?" Teacher was a common title in Asia, it didn't have any special meaning other than to show respect to someone. Han saw that Pathless Origin had a bad temper, so he quickly lowered his head. "Beov, stupid, you don't even know this. This suit is made from the skin of the Black Celestial Python, and it has a huge weakness. Although its physical defense is ranked to be 3 stars, its defense against superpower is complete garbage. Other people sell it as 3-star, I don't think it deserves such ranking so I lowered it to 2.5 stars. Pathless Origin answered. Han was surprised, ranked 3 stars for physical damage and can't defend against superpowers, wasn't this designed for him? He was immune to powers anyways. "Teacher, I have another question." Han continued politely. "Why are you so annoying? If it wasn't because Nightwalker specifically told me to treat you well, I wouldn't even be replying you. Hurry, hurry." Pathless Origin's attitude was still the worst it can be. Han asked, "Aside from the Black Celestial Python set, I also would like buy the heavy dagger named Tremor. I want to ask about the actual weight of Tremor. How would I know if I never weighted it before? Tremor is just used for close-range combat. For close-range combat, if the weapon is too light it has no power. The pros all use weapons that are slightly heavier, if you can't use it then you are too weak, it has nothing to do with the weapon." Pathless Origin explained. Han noticed, although Pathless Origin had a bad attitude, all his explanations were all on point. He explained complex problems using just a few sentences. Han was yelling out of excitement on the inside, this guy's actually a pro. He already got scolded for a while, might as well ask one more question. "Teacher, your review on power immunity was right on point. I was wondering, are there any other secrets to mastering martial arts? Hey, are you going to be done anytime soon? To practice martial arts, of course you have to train in the extreme cold and train to your death. Only the iciness can trigger a human's strongest power, the natural survival instinct. In this world, tropical temperatures represent life while cold represents death. The strongest moment in someone's life is the moment he about to die. That's when it's most possible to conjure surprising amounts of energy. That's the power of will to living. To practice martial arts, you have to go practice in an extremely cold environment and look for that near-death feeling." Han realized that Pathless Origin was only cruel on the outside, but as long as he asks in a humble voice, Pathless Origin will still explain to you. Although the explanation isn't very detailed, it was very memorable. Han still wanted to ask some question about training, but he feared that if he pissed off the oddly tempered Pathless Origin, then it won't be worth it in the long run. So, he politely said bye to Pathless Origin and checked out the items he bought. Pathless Origin's items were all cheaper than others, but the shipping was expensive. Shipping to Earth costs 500 GC. After checking out, Han checked his wallet, he only had 11 GC left. That's alright, the drug index can generate for him a steady income of 400.500 GC every day, and he just had to make more money. Soon, it was 5 days after. In the 5 days, Han took out at least 8 hours every day doing physical exercises and some basic training. Now he lowered the time needed to write the index report to 1.5 hour, plus another 1.5 hour to polish up the data and the report. In total, he spends 3 hours every day, and he actually accomplishes more within these 3 hours than when he used to work 20 hours every day. Han couldn't thank his superpower enough. After he had Void End, it's like he changed into a new person, even his brain worked better than before now. Aside from training and writing drug index reports, Han also checked out Pathless Origin's website on a daily basis and asked that oddly tempered old man whenever he was stuck on a difficult concept. Of course Pathless Origin didn't want Han to bother him, but there was a good old saying. No one hits a smiling face. Han's attitude was way too nice, calling him teacher every sentence. Also, Han would never annoy him, he only asked at most 3 questions every day and it never took longer than 5 minutes. Although Pathless Origin was still as bad-tempered as before, he never refused to answer Han's questions. There was even one day when Han didn't even open his mouth before Pathless Origin started the conversation with, "What do you want to ask again today?" This was a good start, along with Han's improving ability to study and Pathless Origin's mentorship on the side, his knowledge on power, martial arts, strategy, training, started growing at an incredible speed. Han did start very late, but his speed of improvement was unmatched. At dawn, Han came back home from a morning run. He took a shower, got changed and left the house. The night before, Night Walker's package finally arrived. Han delivered the package to 4th Grandpa right away at night, and he was told that the effect was promising. Li Chi had told Han to meet with him at the hospital in the afternoon. Now, Han's going to go to the Esper administration to continue the pressure exam. Chapter 20. Potential that's against the rules of heaven. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Han took the subway and arrived at the 18th floor of the Esper Administration Center again and saw Li Muyun. The monk was there too, but Cheng Zhong wasn't. Han and the monk casually chatted for a bit and then went into the assessment pod. Schwa light flashed past and Han was teleported to the second round of the galactic pressure exam. According to his knowledge, there were 3 rounds for this pressure exam. The first one was advancing under the deep sea again, the second one was escaping the desert, and the third one was climbing a snow mountain. These 3 were ranked by difficulty from easiest to hardest. The first one was naturally the easiest, with a max score of 100. The second one was harder, with a max score of 300. The third one was the hardest, max score was 500. Plus another 100 points for bonus, the max score in total was 1000. After the 3 pressure exams was a battle test, the max score was 3000. After these 2 sets of exams were done, the top 10,000 contestants would be chosen to join the Galactic Meet's main contest. The oldest allowed sign-up age was 27 years old, since the Galactic Meet was a competition between the younger generations. With a countless number of planets in the galaxy, the total population was at least on the scale of millions of trillions, so the top 10,000 contestants were for sure the elites among the young ones in the galaxy. Han saw the monk in the public square. They were both doing the second test, so they took the adjacent teleporters but got teleported to different arenas again. Han shrugged his shoulders, he had power immunity, so if he could be in the same arena as Monk for this exam then he can at least somewhat help Monk. Looks like the system automatically separates contestants of the same country or planet to avoid cheating. Han took a look around himself, only to see that he was standing in the middle of a desert tornado. The tornado had blown the sand into a swirling pattern, so no matter which direction he took he would have to cross the tornado. The wind had an extremely powerful destructive force. Even before entering the storm, some soldiers that were a little weaker were already struggling to stay standing. Han saw many people reluctantly walk into the storm, only to be torn into pieces by the sharp wind. Of course, the difficulty of this round was a lot higher than the first one. According to the rules, the further you walk in the storm, the more points you will get. And if you successfully walk out from the tornado, then you receive the maximum score of 300. In addition, there's also 50 bonus marks for this round. Apparently there's a sacred temple inside the storm, and if one can retrieve the stone of light from the temple, then she will receive the bonus points. Of course, most people wouldn't bother with some temple because they would already consider themselves incredibly lucky if they can even make it out. Ain't nobody got time for that shit. Han scouted around, and picked the path with the least amount of people and started advancing. The majority of the contestants were gathered on the right-hand side of Han. It was like the sheep crowd effect where basically everyone would follow the crowd. Doing so allows the people that are scared of challenges and adventure to feel safer while walking behind others. But Han didn't worry since he could nullify any power, and this sand storm was simulated with the attacks of a sand descent esper and a wind descent esper, which has no effect on Han. He just had to make sure he doesn't get lost. Before walking into the storm, Han could already feel grains of sand hitting his face, which was actually quite painful. Power immunity didn't mean it was also immune from pain, so Han could still feel the sand hitting his face. But that didn't slow down Han's steps at all. After experiencing the battle 7 days ago, Han started to realize the responsibility on his shoulders. Regardless of how weak Earth was, it was still his home and the place he grew up in. Who would want to see their home ending up in the hands of others and see his fellow citizens whipped out of their existence? Reminiscing the scene where the espers from Earth were putting their lives on the line to protect the powerless people, Han could never stay calm. Although he couldn't name any one of them, he felt that they were all heroes and a bunch of fellows that deserved respect. In comparison to the past, Han had one more belief: he's still not strong enough right now and he needs to work to become stronger non-stop. He had to give it his all to protect those existences that were worth protecting. Han squinted his eyes and started walking faster and faster in the mad sand. Regardless of how hard the sharp sand grains hit his face and how many more bloody cuts appeared, his footsteps did not slow down at all. To others it may seem like a disaster, but to Han it was training that he must endure. The further he walked, the harder the sand storm hit. The furious wind could easily blow people off their feet. Suddenly, a black shadow loomed on the horizon, and when Han got closer he saw a sacred temple built with giant white stones. How lucky! If it wasn't because he chose the path that the majority didn't, he could have never have come across this lonely temple. A bonus 50 points is pretty good. Han smiled and said to himself. Esper Administration 18th floor. After what happened last time, Li Muyun started paying extra attention to Han. The moment he entered the exam, Li Muyun started playing Han's exam broadcast on the large screen. Void End was still as powerful as before. When everyone else were getting blown to the point of losing their sense of direction, Han's footsteps were still firm and determined. As Han walked further and further in distance, his points became higher as well. According to the system, Han's score had passed 200 already, surpassing the majority of people. Monk, who took the exam at around the same time as Han, had already been eliminated from the test. Void End is really a power against all heaven's rules. Li Muyun exclaimed. The monk shook his bald head. I don't think it's all because of his power. You see, his steps are very determined, on the unstable sand against that raging wind, yet his legs aren't shaking at all. It seems like his power source index has improved from the first time I've seen it 7 days ago. That can't be right. Li Muyun hesitated and said, Han used 16 years to accumulate 26 power source index, which means that it grows on average 1.68 every year. His potential is probably the worst I've seen. According to my past experience, this speed of growth can't be improved no matter how hard he trains. Now it has only been a few days and his index increased. The monk shrugged his shoulder. I'm not too sure, I just feel that Han's steps are a lot stable than a week ago. Li Muyun thought for a second, opened Han's assessment statistics out of curiosity, and he almost jumped up when he saw Han's updated index. The assessment chat showed no changes for other data, but Han's power source index actually increased by 15, so now Han's at 42. Li Muyun was completely astonished by what he saw, and he began to realize that he and Chu Li might have completely misjudged Han's potential. Normally, power source index has a natural growth rate, and that means even if an Esper doesn't do any training at all, their index will still naturally increase by a certain amount. Natural growth rate of power source index is like someone's foundation, and combined with intense training, it can be amplified by as much as 4 and 5 times more. That means, an Esper with a natural growth rate of 10 every year, if trained properly, can increase her power source index by 50, more or less. And back to Han's case, natural growth rate of 1.68 was not just bad, it was the worst of the worst. That was why even though Li Muyun and Chu Li knew how powerful Han's power was, they didn't make any arrangement for him. But now, Han's natural growth rate had reached 15 points every week, which meant that it could have been a 60-point increase if he had the proper training. Every year had 52 weeks, that's a growth rate of around 3,120 points in 1 year. According to this calculation, Han would be an average Division 3-star Esper in 1 year, capable of creating a void domain of 10 meters in radius. And in that domain, he would be a godly existence. Everyone else's power would all be forcefully taken away. It would be complete darkness and the ultimate end for the enemies. And what about 2 years after? 5 years? 10 years? Li Muyun blew out a heavy ring of smoke. He finally realized that Han's not some ordinary guy with the right power but no potential. Instead, he was a monster with the power and the potential that went against all heavenly principles. Thanks guys for all your support. The bonus queue is at 17 now. Although it will take some time for us to clear the queue since it's exam season, but don't worry homies. We will clear them right up after we are done exam. Again, thank you guys all for the support and donations.